MEF and bank audit issues may not be conclusion. You know, the recently SRC has conducted program on MEF and bank audit appointment allotments by state-wise, wherein the PDC chairman of ICA, say I can say Babu sir from Cochin. The other word I also put Babu sir, new word, is the PDC president of ICA. And our Prasanna Kumar sir participated as a speaker. It was a grand success. In that session, Babu sir had said the bank audit fee will definitely increase very shortly. And surprisingly, he also told that there is a possibility to increase the fees per 2021 also. Few of the banks already paid, but still we have the chance to get that the incremental fee. But assured that he expressed 21-22 definitely will get the increment. In the same meetings, the Prasanna Kumar sir also presented the statistics of the appointment firms by state-wise. The AP firms and members has got more than 90% appointments, which is the highest in the South states. For your understanding, in Hyderabad, category 4 firms and proprietary firms individuals are getting less than 35% only appointments. Rest are 65% by virtually or by force to pooling they are continued. So the AP is the highest one are getting that appointments. I request Prasanna sir to explain that about these proprietary firms and individuals who having the doubts for the appointment 21-22 due to RBI notifications. Members, I don't want to take much on this. The August gathering is waiting to hear the Prasanna sir and other dignitaries. I thank all these Godavari 3 branches and members for giving this wonderful opportunity and meet at virtual dais. Thank you all. Jai Hind, Jai ICA.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. And we know, always remembers you for MEF for all this. We are very close to us for MEF. Thank you. Before handing over to our Prasanna Kumar sir, now I request my chairman, Kantipuudi Satyanarayana, please say on this occasion and welcome the gathering, sir. Please. Kantipuudi Satyanarayana.
Unmute చేయండి సత్యనారాయణ గారు, అన్మ్యూట్ చేయండి. చైర్మన్ గారు అన్మ్యూట్ చేసుకోండి.
Thank you, Gangaram Garu. Am I audible, sir?
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you, Gangaram Garu. Respected CA, Jamun K Judge, today's resource person and past chairman of SARC, CA Prasanna Kumar Garu, Central Council member, CA Channamastan Garu, Vice Chairman SARC, CA Naresh Gilli Garu, Regional Council member and ex officio of Kakinada and West Godavari branches, CA Chengal Reddy Garu, another Regional Council member and ex officio of Rajamahendravaram branch, office bearers of Rajamahendravaram and West Godavari branches, my dear professional colleagues, a very good morning, one and all. At the outset, I welcome you all to today's virtual CPE on accounting standards applicable to non-corporate entities. Today's topic is very important in view of 2 important factors. 1, these accounting standards are mandatorily made applicable to non-corporate entities. We being practitioners in official areas, 99% of our client base represent non-corporate entities. In view of this, it is quite relevant for us. Next, these accounting standards are mandatorily made applicable for the accounting periods commencing on or after 1st April 2020. Hence, it is needless to say that it is applicable for the financial year 2020-21, in respect of which we are all going to take up the tax audit assignments very soon. We all know that the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India has been issuing accounting standards from time to time. As of now, we are having as many as 29 accounting standards, and out of which 16 have been made mandatorily applicable to non-corporate entities, basing on their classification into 11, 1, 2, 3, 4, depending upon their respective turnover and borrowings. Of course, which our resource person would explain at length. I think it is a really very big task on the part of resource person to cover this entire topic within a short span of 2 hours. Before concluding, I would like to express my gratitude to the today's resource person, CA George Garu, who has given his consent, though we have contacted him with a very short notice. I would also like to thank our ex officio, CA Naresh Gilli Garu, who has put his sincere efforts in contacting, in convincing and securing today's date of resource person CA George Garu. I hope we will all get enlightened and enjoy the presentation of CA Jamun K. George Garu. With this, I am going to conclude. I am handing over the proceedings to CA Gangaram Garu. Over to Gangaram Garu.
Thank you, Satyanarayana Garu. Thank you, sir, Chairman, sir. And
Right.
it is no need to introduce our Prasanna Kumar, sir. He is our regular this one, and he's always a laughing smile and very cooperative for any of the issues. Whatever it may be the issue, he is ready to help us. So there is no to introduce him. I request him to come and say a few words on this occasion, sir. Please.
Thank you.
Welcome to permanent chief guest, sir.
No guest, permanent host. One among the hosts.
Thank you for reciprocating.
Permanent patron, sir. Permanent patron.
Permanent. Yeah. Respected CA Kantipudu Satyanarayana Garu, the chairman of Kakinada branch of SARCF ICA, and CA Jamun K. George, the past chairman and the speaker of today's session, CA Channamasthan, the vice chairman of SARCF ICA, CA Naresh Chandra Giri in absentia, he may join anytime, past vice chairman and the present SICASA chairman, CA Chengal Reddy in absentia, and CA CVN Gangaram, is all in one in Kakinada branch. Naga Devikon past chairman, CA V Radha Garu, and my dear participants, good morning to all of you. It's a proud privilege for me once again to join you on this occasion where all the 3 Godavari branches are joining together and organize a very important topic on the accounting standards applicable to non-company entities. So the good topic that you have chosen, and today we have very good resource person in CA Jamun K. George. Jamun K. George and myself were fortunate enough to have been together in one term in regional council. So thereafter, I came to central council with a gap, having lost the election once. So I joined in 2018. So Jamun K. George, so those he's too junior to me in his age, and the level of experience, the level of competence that he has got very high level, and his maturity is a very high level of maturity you can see in him. And that's why I always call him. He is a great academician, and he is a very great knowledge bank in a variety of topics, not only in accounting standards and auditing assurance standards. In almost all the topics, he's got great knowledge, and is a great leader and organizer. Like Gangaram Garu said, the way in which he organized the conference you have seen, how he took care of everyone. That's the organization skills that he has got. Is a very great analyst and the articulator. You'll see his English, the type of English he speaks, the type of articulation he does. Anyway, you'll have a feast of knowledge, feast in another 1.5 hours to go. He's a great contributor for the entire profession. And all these qualities, you may have individually, somebody may be good leader, somebody may be good academician like that. A blend of all these qualities, if at all one is there, one among the very few that you have is CA Jamun K. George. So we are fortunate to have such a great leader from Southern India.
Thank you, Prasanna. Thank you.
And not only that, the way in which he will deal with the subject, so you will understand directly. You need not go and refer any book. Though I got one book, which has been released by Institute, a quick referencer for the micro non-company entities, which are released as early as latest as May 21. So very good book. So he will put all the knowledge into our mind. And number of occasions organized, he has addressed the members on this topic also. Coming to Joman Keja, before I close, so Joman Keja, actually somebody was asking in the initial chat, so are you contesting for Central Council? May not be the point, may not be relevant, but as far as I am concerned, I am waiting for him to join there, hoping that I will also get re-elected. I am sincerely waiting that he should come and join our bandwagon. I wish him all the best. The friends, as far as today's Channamastan is there. Channamastan already told about the bank audit. He's a bank of bank audit knowledge. Okay, so
Byword for MEF, sir. Byword for MEF.
MEF. So small and medium practitioners. Actually, I explained, those who attended that particular program the other day, you must have known, even CA Babu Abraham Kallivairil, who is the chairman of the Professional Development Committee. Actually, we're all fortunate enough to have him as the PDC committee. Not only Southern India, but the entire country is fortunate enough to have such a great leader who has taken up very seriously and having a good relationship building with the Reserve Bank of India. And not only the Reserve Bank of India, even the Indian Bankers Association. Thereby, there are many concerns, not only regarding statutory branch audit, not only regarding statutory central audit of the banks, and also audit of the foreign branches of Indian banks. So that also he has taken up, and also to streamline the concurrent audit and other functions. What are the areas that were serving the banking industry? He has taken up all this very seriously because he knows that all these things are well connected with, closely knitted with the small and medium practitioners. So he has got a blend of experience also. So he has taken up. I'm sure something tangible is going to happen during the current year. So though most of the other members may be busy with their election, not going to contest now. And already we have got Joman Keja to replace him there. So he will do a lot during this term to see that all the pending matters, all the aspirations, small and medium practice with respect to banking sector itself is concerned, will have a lot of results to come. He has also announced the other day that, as far as the, Andhra Pradesh is concerned, the highest cover number of auditors eligible, without the number of auditors appointed, if you take, the highest percentage is Andhra Pradesh only, where 90%, more, slightly more than 90% auditors who are eligible for getting the bank audit, they have got it already. So I think with the effort that is going to be put in by CA Babu Abraham, I'm sure next year, next empanelment, that is 21-22 empanelment, which is going to happen, everyone in Andhra Pradesh who is eligible to get audit will get it. We'll have 100% Andhra Pradesh. I'm damn sure about that one. So we need not worry at all. You keep quiet, we'll get the audit. So that's the way Babu Abraham is working with that. Friends, having said that, so accounting standards, whatever the little I wanted to speak about this, whatever the little I know and wanted to speak, see Channamastan and Kantipudi Satra, both of them explained in detail. So I don't have much to say. The only thing, I just recall, it was in, I think, 2004, when, this the level 1, level 2, level 3 entities were there. It was made applicable to non-company entities also. Slowly, subject evolved. Later on, it was taken to small and medium-sized enterprises. And, then there was a school of thought that we should have separate, accounting standards for non-corporate entities. Not only non-corporate entities, non-company entities, but but also even corporate, also small companies. With a turnover of some specific limit we wanted to have. We really worked on the topic also. Finally, so it has gone to a stage where that we thought, let's not dilute already our members and most of the entities have got knowledge of accounting standards. Let us dilute little more. Let us simplify so that it not only ensures easy of doing business and also ensures compliance also. Thereby, this particular redefining the MSMEs in line with the MSMED Act has been done. It's a very good initiative. It was appreciated by even the ministry. Ministry also, in fact, these things need not go to the ministry, but still they are interested in the EOD, the ease of doing business. See, in that process, we are taken up in the ministry also. Everyone is appreciated, and I'm sure Joman K. George will deal with that in detail. See, but normally we get a doubt. If there's a company, there's a report. The report need to be given as per statute. The statute auditor report need to be given. Thereby, the audit compliance of all the accounting standards be ensured there. So, whereas for a non-company entity, there's no general purpose audit except in few cases. But the only audit that is there subject to audit is only under Income Tax Act, that under Section 44AB of the Income Tax Audit. So when the tax audit is there, the entire orientation is different. So the orientation, though you certify the financial statements, so what you are reporting is a specific report in line with the Income Tax Act. So Form 3CB or 3CD, their entire thing is related to Income Tax Act, nothing to do with true and fair or opinion about the financial statements. But only one thing was certified there is that the detail that has been given to Form 3CD are correct, not correct means absolute assurance we are giving them. The most important audit that we are doing is, normally we give opinion. In case of tax audit, you say that the particulars given are correct. So that is the level of assurance we are giving. So that's why we always get a doubt. Should we follow all these accounting standards, non-corporate, non-company entities or not? I'm sure we have to follow. Is primarily the knowledge should be given to the client. Is the client who prepares a books of account? Is the client, is the assessee or the entrepreneur who prepares the books of account, who prepares the balance sheet, who prepares all the financial statement, comes to an auditor for an opinion or to give a report, 3CB or 3CD as the case may be. So is the client also should understand these things. So I'm sure this in detail, see, Jomon K. George will explain all of us. So we'll certainly get the benefit. Then we'll understand what is the importance of these particular accounting standards with respect to non-company entities. So these few words, I don't know much to add because recently only I have shared whatever the little things which have been happening in Central Council. We'll have more details very soon. And in fact, today, it has been advised that somebody, Anand, he has expressed that we want to have a, lift for our building. Is a good idea. And whatever it is, the Devi Kumar Garu, the chartered engineer who is sitting in amongst us. So when I say chartered engineer, I mean it also. The chartered engineer, so he can take lead in consulting with the chairman. He put up the proposal immediately. So as a special case, though the capital grant is already completed, next will come only in the month of January. So in spite of that, I'll take it a special case and request the president to give a special sanction for this particular purpose.
Yes, sir.
So with this view, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Prasanna Kumar Garu. Thank you very much.
Definitely. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. Wish you all the best. Have a great learning. I welcome Jomon K. George once again to Andhra Pradesh, and whichever the branch he has not visited, I think he should visit all the branches. And the couple of topics are very close to his heart. I request all the branches also, so that he is invited to all the branches. He should have connect with AP members. He's close to all our hearts. The way in which he has been interacted with us during his tenure as a chairman also. Welcome once again, Jomon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prasanna.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Prasanna Kumar, sir. You have excellent enlightened John K. George, sir, as well as the other things which we are not actually have idea of those things. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Prasanna Kumar, sir. Now it is actually formal, sir, to introduce our John K. George, sir. Actually, he is having very good, vast experience.
1 minute, Gangaram, sir. 1 minute, Gangaram Garu. Gangaram Garu.
Okay.
CS Changal Reddy Garu joined. Please welcome him.
Oh, yeah.
Sir, I think after talking our chief guest, it is not good for me to speak in front of the senior chief guest. Better to introduce Jomon K. George, sir, and continue the session, sir. The time is very precious. We have to listen more about the topics. So please try to go ahead, sir. I wish you all the best for all the members who are joining for this today program, sir.
Thank you very much.
Please go ahead, sir. Please go ahead.
The words you have given. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for your words, sir. Now I am introducing our John K. George, sir. He is a fellow membership of the Chartered Accountancy, and he is having a vast experience of 29 years, diverse practice experience, and chairman of the SIRC for the period 2019 and 20. Excellent periods, the roadmap, actually a milestone, milestone. We never forget the one we enjoyed, which program, that is, we never forget that one, sir. Other, there is no other program also we have like that. Thank you, sir. And next he is the founder and managing partner of the JVR and Associates, an 8-partner firm specialized in corporate audits and consultancy, and mentor Phillips Macmillan Woods, a multidisciplinary accounting and consulting firm based in Dubai. And he is the faculty for auditing at the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India and taught more than 10,000 CA students. And not only that, regular resource person on professional circuits on accounting and auditing standards and corporate audits, has done more than 900 presentations. Also a peer review trainer. He is also a member of the Auditing and Assurance Standards Boards of ICAI and chairman of ICAI Ernakulam branch in the year 2002 and 3. And he's having very fascination. Extensively, he has traveled for traveling UK, Middle East, and Far East. Past president of the Rotary Question Central and member of various social clubs. Honorable Secretary of Kerala Management Association. And he is also authorized a book, Trails, Pinpathakal, reflection of the personal and professional life, released in the month of February 2021. He is a member and advisory board, St. Theresa's College, Ernakulam. With this, I request our George sir, please welcome and give your excellent lecture and enlighten us, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much. Good morning to all of you. It is 12 noon, so whether either good morning or good afternoon it can be. Extremely nice to be with you for this session. The chairman of the lead branch, Kakinada branch, Satyanarayana sir. Chairman of the West Godavari branch, Ramana Rao sir. Chairman of the Raja Mahendravaram branch, Mohan Rao sir. And very, very special, not a guest, very big patron, not only for all the branches across the southern region, personally for me also, Prasanna Kumar sir. And when I joined the regional council in 2012, sir was a senior member there, serving the third term. And I took my baby steps in regional council, holding his hand. And that hand is still firmly with me. That's a big assurance for me, big support for me, big comfort for me. And everyone was talking about the Kochi conference. How can we forget the Vaisak conference in the Buddha Park and in the beautiful sea breeze, excellent technical sessions, and evening the fellowship. I still remember the taste of the chili chicken is still lingering in my mouth. So Prasanna sir, any angle you see, because I've been closely working with Babu Abraham sir, they're very good friends, and this has really helped me, being moving up in the ladder of my professional dreams, and also becoming the chairman in 2009-20. I don't think there's any major issue where I have not consulted Prasanna sir, and he has given very, very effective guidance. Vice chairman of the region, my very dear friend Chinnamma-san, who is again mentioned about the importance and gave a hope that the bank audit fees would soon be revised, quoting C. Babu Abraham. Chengal Reddy, another esteemed colleague in the regional council. Naresh, I spoke to him in the morning. He is busy with some chamber workers, so he is wearing many caps these days. So he might join in any time. Other managing committee members of the branch, particularly to mention Gangaram sir, who is very smoothly coordinating like an MC, professional MC, or coordinating everything without missing out on anything. And of course, Madam Radha, who is the sole lady member in the 3 branches, the managing committee of the 3 branches. Other members who are online with us, virtually with us for this program. Once again, a warm good morning to all of you. Extremely delighted to be part of this program, jointly organized by 3 branches. And as Satyanarayana sir said, it's very important topic because one, we are standing at the entry point, the threshold of the ensuing audit season. Because of COVID, the clients are not ready. Client accountants have not been able to prepare financial statements and complete accounting. So now probably with COVID easing out, we will have a very busy season of audits which are coming up of corporate as well as non-corporate entities. The topic was suggested again by Naresh Gali because he said these are places where you have traders and a large number of non-corporate entities. And in the May 2021 journal, it was a decision of the council. Prasanna sir has mentioned about it, the 400th meeting. It is easy to remember. 400th meeting of the council, which was held in March 2021. They took a fresh look, a very new look at the way the classifications are done, and added a new category that also Satyanarayana sir rightly mentioned. We had only 3 categories earlier. Now we have 4 categories. Category 4 also has been added. and in line with the MSME classification, things like that. And therefore, that is a topic. And with that introduction, and thanking the organizers for giving me this opportunity, thanking Prasanna sir and my colleagues in the Regional Council for joining this morning. Let me try to share my screen for this short presentation. I think we will move fast, and because there is some amount of familiarity, this is like a recap. So I think we'll be able to complete in less than 1.5 hours. That's what I hope to do. So with that, let me try sharing the screen. Sir, I'm not enabled to share the screen. Can you enable me? Who is the host? Host disabled participant screen sharing.
Jairam.
Jairam, please look into.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please, 1 second, sir. Sir, can I make you host, sir? Please.
Yeah, please.
Kishore, right the level.
Instead of Joman Keja, they have given me screen sharing power.
Yeah.
I have that.
Yeah, I have the screen sharing now.
Please, sir. Please share.
Thank you for empowering me. Is the screen visible, sir?
No, sir, not yet. Not yet.
Okay.
You started screen sharing. Yeah, now it is come. Yeah.
That's come now.
Yeah, it is there.
Now it's okay, sir. Right.
So accounting standards for non-corporate entities, the right topic. And so organized jointly by Kakinada, West Godavari and Rajamahendravaram branches. The evolution of accounting standards board to set up in 1977, and it has evolved over the years. And we have today, as rightly mentioned by the chairman of the Kakinada branch, we have 29 standards, out of which 2 have been withdrawn. 2 have been withdrawn. Accounting standard 6 on depreciation, accounting standard 8 on research and development have been withdrawn. So effectively, we have 29 minus 2 standards, but they have not been renumbered. So therefore, we have up to 29. In between, 2 are being withdrawn. That is a basic understanding of these standards. Now, the council decision, the impacting council decision, which if need be in between Prasanna sir can add on to, that's the 400th meeting in March 2021. Reconsidered and approved a new scheme for the applicability of accounting standards for non-corporate entities, as again, Satyanarayana sir rightly pointed out, effective from financial year 2021. Those are the audits which we are going to do in the ensuing days, in the days lying ahead of us in the next 2-3 months. And I'm sure that this time, because of the big trouble we had and we are still having on the income tax portal, thanks to Infosys, but the dates will surely be extended. And that relaxation, those relaxations are already there. And July returns have been extended to September. Naturally, that will further be extended. So we are living in an extension raj caused by many of these technical problems. So this decision is a very impacting decision. Now before we go into the specifics, let us ask this question. Non-corporate audits in these 3 branches, the members in these 3 branches where we are doing non-corporate audits, what kind of audits are we doing? I think this is applicable mostly for tax audits. Tax audits under 44AB of the Income Tax Act, where we have 2 types of tax audits. Now, non-corporate entities, absolutely no problem. We are issuing Form 3CB as the auditor's report, Form 3CB, and 3CD as additional particulars under the tax law, 3CB, in 3CB, we are expressing an opinion on true and fair. Therefore, in all those cases, accounting standards would become applicable. Now, also think about a non-corporate entity who is not subject to tax audit. Now, the limits have been raised. Let us say an entity with 2 crores of turnover, not falling under 44 ADA and all that. And they are approaching you to do an audit. Sir, we have to get the accounts audited, properly audited. There's a difference, very important difference, which every one of us have to understand. That properly audited means there also accounting standards would apply. Accounting standards would apply from an auditor's perspective. For non-corporate entities, there is no statutory force. Companies Act, if you see, companies have to comply with accounting standards, and the auditor in section 143 of the Companies Act have to report whether companies have complied with accounting standards. This is a very important point. But non-corporate entities, it is the dictum of the institute on the membership that the compliance with accounting standards should be ensured in the audit of non-corporate entities, in the preparation of financial statements also. Now, let me take 1 minute to talk about this provisional financial statements and projected financial statements, which the bankers have been asking. And the bankers have been asking just like that the auditor should put a signature without saying what it is. So therefore, that is prohibited. I would like you to refer SRS 4410, SRS 4410, Standard on Related Services on engagements to compile financial information. Most of the non-tax audit clients, now since the limit has been increased, many of our clients would come into that category of compiling financial statements for them. And we would compile financial statement for them for two purposes. One is to file a tax return. P&L is prepared, balance sheet is prepared, and from the P&L we take the income tax computation, net profit as per P&L account, add inadmissible items, less admissible expenses and deductions, and then all those deductions, and finally we arrive at the taxable income, compute tax, and help the client file the return. In a non-tax audit case, I am repeating, this is very important. In a non-tax audit case, it is not required to be signed by the chartered accountant. It is not signed. There's no need for an audit. There's no need for a signature. This is most of the places we are just signing, because we have been signing from ages. We have been time immemorial. We have been signing. So anything that the client's paper we are signing. So, but then we should be very careful about the signing the financial statements, associating our name with financial statements. I'm sure that Honorable CCM would agree with me that many of the disciplinary cases are coming up because we are a little passive. We are too client friendly. Without a need for associating our name, we are ending up in trouble. When I was chairman of SARC, sitting at the SARC office, going to SARC, almost every week I used to spend 2 days there, or at some branch. At the SARC, we have disciplinary committee sittings. Very senior members, young members, for reasons like non-compliance with standards, non-compliance with chartered accounts regulations, code of conduct, etc., have been pulled up for a disciplinary case. This is really unfortunate. So passively doing all this, I've been doing this. So I think there's a need to change the work culture a little bit, because the regulator is looking at us very stringent, and the lens is over the profession and the members of the profession. Therefore, be very clear that unnecessarily in a non-tax audit case for a client who is helping us to be asked to file income tax return, there is no need to associate our name with. But the whole thing changes when the client has a facility with the bank. The bank would surely need to have the financial statements approved by the auditor. Auditor, you wouldn't say auditor, signed by the chartered account, signed by the auditor. That's what the banker says. We should not concede. So if a client says that, sir, I know I'm not required, non-corporate client, we are talking only about non-corporate client. Yeah, a big trader having 200 crores of turnover in Kakinada, saying that, sir, we would like to get the accounts properly audited. We know that legally, if the educated new generation, first generation everywhere in Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, I think it's no different. The first generation people set up businesses, they have grown. And the new gen are better educated. Some of them are MBA, some of them are finance professionals. They say that, okay, we are not required to be audited under any law. Companies Act is not applicable being a non-corporate. Tax audit is not applicable because we are a small entity within the tax audit limit. But still, let us get it audited by a senior, good firm of chartered accountants to see where we stand, the actual position, the inventory valuation, the disclosures, the profitability, the accounting policies that are being followed, whether it is proper. Let's get that advice. At that point of time, yes, we can do the audit. And if you're asked to do the audit under proper appointment letter, engagement letter, we should sign as per our report of event date attached. There it is not the tax audit. There we'll have to issue an auditor's report containing the main aspects. SA 700 gives guidance on that. SA 700 gives guidance on that. So please be clear. The other cases are the non-corporate client asking you to prepare financial statements for bank. Better to avoid associating your name, but in case you are associating, please follow SRS 4410 and you sign by saying refer compilation report. Refer compilation report. And banker would also say that 3 years financial projections or 5 years financial projections also have to be signed by the chartered. Please do not sign. You should abstain from doing that because it's all based on management perceptions, based on assumptions. They're not historical financial information, nothing to fall back upon. except the management's gut feeling. So let us not do that. This is a very, very important aspect one has to keep in mind. Again, there is a standard SAE 3400, Standard on Assurance Engagement 3400, which throws light on how, if at all, we are associating with the prospective financial information, futuristic financial information. It is SAE 3400. I'm seeing some younger members also in the team, where membership of 242, 242, something like that. And I'm seeing the icon as the convocation dress. Nice to see that. These younger members should please take note of this, and you should have a lot of interaction on this so that we don't land up in trouble. So SRS 4410 for compilation, SAE 3400 for prospective financial information. If at all we are forced to do that, that's the only way. Now coming back to the serious business topic of the session, accounting standards, because this prelude, this introduction was required in the context of accounting standards and helping, or rather our non-corp, all government of services which we render to the non-corporate clients. Moving on, look at, this is a new classification. This new classification is, well, like saying that level 1, level 2, and level 3. Two criteria have been applied. One is the turnover criteria. The other one is the borrowings criteria. So if you have borrowings, turnover of more than 250 crores and borrowings of more than 50 crores, then you are a level 1 enterprise, level 1 non-corporate entity. For companies, it's a different story. This definition of SMC, companies accounting standards rules, will apply. It's a definition of a small and medium company. Here we don't say SME and all that. Level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, as CCM rightly pointed out. So if your turnover is more than 250 crores and borrowings is more than 250 crores, 50 crores, you become a level 1 entity. The May 2021 journal, I always request every one of you in the allotted time at least flip through the journal, and all this information, we have it in the journal. Online also it's available, and the journal contains a very detailed article on the announcement criteria for classification of non-corporate entities for applicability of accounting standards. So that is how they have given in the complete list. They have given level 1 entities. All those definitions are given, and therefore that is the reference point we should refer. 2 is level 2 is next level. Turnover is more than 50 crores, but below 250 crores. Borrowings more than 10, less than 50. 3, turnover more than 10 crores, less than 50 crores. Borrowings more than 2 crores, less than 10 crores. And the basic level, entry level, is category 4. That is residuary enterprise, which means that your turnover is less than 10 crores and borrowings is less than 2 crores. It is easy to remember this because if you remember 2 and 10, 2 crores borrowing, 2 crores of borrowing, and 10 crores as the entry level for category 4, and multiply by 5, then you will get the other levels. Multiply by 5, you'll get level 3. Multiply by another 5, you will get level 2, and then beyond level 2 is level 1 enterprise. This is the new classification based on which the accounting standards applicability of accounting standards on non-corporate entities is determined. I hope it's clear. It's clear that the classification is clear. So 2 criteria: turnover and borrowings. Level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4. Now, the cardinal principle, as far as level 1 is concerned, there is absolutely no doubt. There are no relaxations. Turnover more than 250 crores, borrowings more than 50 crores. Then the entire standards, 29-2 standards, without any exemption, is applicable for all these entities. Now, where do we give this compliance with accounting standards and tax audit? Do we really do? Another question which we'll immediately answer in the next few slides is, have any one of us, you and me, have any one of us qualified a tax audit report of let's say, a company with a turnover of, sorry, not a company, a partnership firm? I remember doing a study for one of our companies. Eastern Group is procuring a lot of chilies from Andhra Pradesh. And Guntur, there is a company called VPSA Reddy and Firm. The name of the firm is VPSA Reddy and Firm. It's a partnership firm, but having crores and crores of turnover. So Eastern was procuring from them, and here we had done a study for the transaction between them, I remember. So in Andhra Pradesh, I'm sure, I know that there are a large number of big firms who do not have a corporate culture, but the business is substantially bigger than some of the small listed companies. That is the kind of size the firms carry. So larger firms, 250 crores of turnover, 50 crores of borrowings. Then,
Sir, excuse me.
yeah.
Can I pose a small question, sir?
Sure, please.
If the turnover is more than 250 crores, and the borrowings are less than 50 crores,
yeah,
in which level the entity falls, sir?
Yeah, the terminology they have used here is that non-corporate entities which fall under any one of more of the following categories at the end of the relevant financial year are classified as level 1 enterprises. So which fall in any one or more of the following categories. So which means that any one is satisfied if turnover is more than 250 crores, and if there is no borrowing, then it will become a level 1 entity.
Right, thank you, sir.
Is that clear? That is the same level for all the levels. It is, if any of the conditions are exceeded, levels are exceeded, it will get into that level.
Okay.
I hope
if either of the condition is satisfied, that falls under that category. Okay, right.
Yeah, any one of the conditions.
Right, right, sir. Right.
Thank you, sir. That is required. I think I should have added. I will add a slide in my next presentation. Right. Okay, sir. Now this is the level-wise applicability of the standards. With that, we'll do a quick recap also of the standards of the 27 standards. Disclosure of accounting policies is a basic standard. So here also, I would like you to spend some more, give some more attention and spend some more time. Like Prasanna sir is fortunate to have the new generation, 2 of them in his office. So because he and I know the kind of schedules he has is, I would say that his heart beats for the entire membership. Center for us, chairman of the newly named for members in practice, committee for members in practice, CMIP. The kind of facilities he has brought to the common members. Everyone is under pressure. Financially, everyone is stressed. Of course, some of us have been fortunate to have a different, but young members, newly entered members into practice, they're all having a lot of trouble. So that way, he has been bringing a lot of facilities and relaxations, and I would say that discounts and to the members. Kudos to you, sir, for the excellent job that's being done. So this young generation, young practice partners or qualified assistants, if we have, we should use them more on newer things like, so let us reinvent the notes on accounts. A partnership firm with the 300 crores of turnover for income tax assessment for the banker. Tomorrow, if there is any inquiry or any sensible presentation going for a government grant, all that is, Andhra has got such a big name in ease of doing business, and a lot of things are happening on, and I think you're ranked number 1 in ease of doing business. So a lot of industries would come there, and in any form when they come, we need to be really grabbing the opportunity and advising them. So preparation of financial statement, notes on accounts, sir, it cannot be a one-pager. That has been there for some time. Just like that. For example, gratuity, we'll come to that. So disclosure of accounting policies as a part of the integrated part of the financial statements after the balance sheet, P&L and schedules, we should give notes on account. In the notes on accounts, the first item in the notes on account should be significant accounting policies. I will share with all the branches. This presentation deck I will surely share with all the branches, and also send a sample notes on accounts. Not that I'm doing better than, but if my format is of some use to you, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And the Kumar sir is that, okay, seeing you after a long time on screen, yes. Well, sir, yes. So this I will surely share a sample notes on accounts. So disclosure of accounting policies, inventories, depreciation, fixed assets, foreign exchange transactions, gratuity provisions, all those things, if it is required, we have to give it in detail, how we have revenue recognition. All those things is very, very important. Borrowing costs, what's the treatment of it? Valuation of inventories. Most of these people have big turnover, non-corporate entities have huge amount of inventories, stock. So don't just be happy with the stock statement. In fact, the stock has to be, the auditor has to make sure that the stocks really exist. From an accounting standards perspective, it is across all these levels, it is applicable. Cash flow statements, I think I had put an into mark there, that has not appeared. So cash flow statements are not required for the level 2, level 3 and level 4 enterprises. But level 1 enterprises, if turnover is excess of 250 crores or borrowings in excess of 50 crores, in that case, if you are level 1 entity, non-corporate entity, cash flow statements are mandatory. Contingencies and events occurring after the balance sheet date. We are going to see these standards one by one, the applicability of little as we go by. And that is applicable. Net profit or loss for the period. Sir, prior period extraordinary items applicable. AIS 6 has been withdrawn, so we go straight to AIS 7. If this non-corporate entity is a construction contractor, it is fully applicable. AIS 9, revenue recognition. How to recognize revenue from sales, services, royalty income if they receive, interest income if they receive, all discussed in AIS 9, applicable. And AIS 10, property, plant and equipment, is applicable, but there are some very small relaxations for these 3 levels, level 2, level 3 and level 4, is that encourage disclosures. Encourage disclosures, paragraph 87. Paragraph 87, encourage disclosures are not applicable. That's not very, very important. I'll just see what this thing. And similarly in AIS 11 also, exemption for level 3 and level 4. I put the not 1, not 2. So for level 2 enterprises, all these standards, 7, 9, 10, 11 and 12 are fully applicable. For level 3 and level 4 only, this encourage disclosure, some of them in relating to fixed assets and tangible. The new name for AIS 10 is property, plant and equipment. That is applicable. And AIS 13, yes, applicable for level 2 and level 3. There is a small exemption again on certain additional disclosures. Not 3 paragraph I mentioned. I'll share the slide with you. Accounting for amalgamations, but in the non-corporate space, I still doubt how this amalgamations would happen. But then it's normally in the corporate space. But if that kind of amalgamations happen in accordance with the AS 14, pooling of interest method and purchase method and all that, where that happens, then it is applicable for level 2 and level 3. Level 4 it is exempted. AIS 15, employee benefits, is a standard which is applicable, which is not applied at all. So the point here is, you could be a non-corporate entity, but having, let's say, 100 employees who have been there with you for quite some time, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, like that. And the employee benefits provision for gratuity is something which is not applied properly. The accounting standard makes it mandatory that the incremental liability of gratuity accruing year after year should be provided for. A provision has to be made for gratuity, even if you are a non-corporate entity. Some of us may take the group gratuity policy. Some of our clients would take a group gratuity policy. The next slide in detail explains the exemptions which are available for these 3 entities. But then all the levels, AIS 15 is mandatory. If you have been to the Middle East and worked with clients in the Middle East, one of the important audit considerations, accounting as well as audit considerations in the Middle East, where other things are a little loose and relaxed, is the lot of focus is there on, they call it as end of service benefits. You know why? Because if an employee who has completed the required number of years of service leaves, then within months they will have to settle the entire end of service benefits. Not like here, in case somebody goes and then the enforcement there is so strong that if you go to the labor court, they'll immediately get back to the employer to settle it. So end of service benefits are to prepare sensible financial statements, to bring about a true and fair view of financial information. End of service benefits are very important. Borrowing costs, yes, we are going to see the details of this, and across the board it's applicable. Segment reporting, business segment reporting, exempted for all the level 2, level 3 and level 4. So what's the cardinal principle for level 1? Level 1, no exemptions, no relaxations. Turnover more than 250 crores or borrowings more than 50 crores, all the standards, like a big corporate entity, a non-corporate entity of this size, level 1 has to comply with all the standards in toto, in entirety. Related party disclosures. Yes, sir. This is very important. Related party disclosures, AS 18 is applicable at all levels. So it's not only AS 18. Related party disclosures are seen with some kind of disfavor across the globe. In the Indian context, if you look at the Companies Act, we take a detour. Companies Act is Section 188, related party transactions, restrictions on related party transactions, prohibition on certain related party transactions, and 189 requires a register to be maintained. Income Tax Act, we have 48(2)(b), where the assessing officer has the discretion of disallowing payments which are not fair, which are excessive, or which are unreasonable to related parties. And we are reporting that in detail in the Form 3CD that we issue year after year. Accounting Standard 18, related party disclosure. SA 550, it's a standard on auditing 550 tells us how to determine related party transactions and make sure that all of them are disclosed properly in the financial statements to give the fullest information to the users of financial information. AS 18 is that. AS 13 is, of course, level 4. There is an exemption for, again, for disclosures only. Now, please look at this. Let's spend 2 minutes on this because you could have non-corporate entities with, let's say, 100 or even more employees. And therefore, this standard is very, very important. The exemptions which are available for level 2 and level 3 entities that, you have to get hold of an actuary. Actuarial valuation, in smaller cases, it is not required. Discounting the amounts that fall due after 12 months. Terminal benefits or defined benefit plans, as I say, falling due after 12 months need not be discounted. It could be on any other fair basis that can be done. And the recognition and measurement principles and disclosure requirements in respect of accounting for defined benefit plans and long-term employee plans, but actuarial valuation is required for level 2 and level 3 entities. Actuarial valuation is mandatory. So if actuarial valuation is not done, IAS 15 is not complied with, which would require the auditor to make a mention about the non-compliance. That we will see how to report. Again, is a very tricky one. It is not essentially an audit qualification, but we should bring a mention about the non-compliance. Level 3 entity with less than 50 employees and level 4 enterprises, actuarial valuation is not required. So, sirs, you may be thinking that is this so important to have the accounting standards applied in tax audits where the client is not bothered at all. It's not about the client, it is we doing what the institute asks us to do. Chinamasan was talking about, in the introduction, he was saying that he will tell us what are the things to be done, what are the things which should not be done. That is also very important. So we have seen a lot of members in Kerala also for this kind of non-compliances. When there's a disciplinary issue, it is very impersonal. You cannot say that the client I know for 20 years and I've been doing the accounts, the accountant is very, very senior and all that. This really doesn't work. Really doesn't work in a disciplinary proceeding. So one has to be extremely clear. Another thing which I'm seeing, another thing which I'm an unhealthy practice which I'm seeing is our association with the non-professionals. The client may have somebody, a consultant, like an external tax consultant. They were called sales tax practitioners, ITPs. And with the GST coming in, they were not, because they took more time to understand GST and surface again. Many of our members are blindly relying on these guys. These so-called consultants were not professionals. Sales tax practitioners, ITPs, now GST practitioners, they're called. And they just bring the financial statements to the auditor, and the auditor just has a chat with him and signs the financial statements. Sir, under the new code of conduct, I'm giving the theory of it, but I think this is a theory which all of us should practice and all of us can practice. Under the new code of conduct, and even before that, KYC, client KYC is mandatory. For every balance sheet, every financial statements, every certificate that you sign, you must have a file, and the client KYC is very important, it's mandatory. So we should have a direct connect to the client, not through the consultant, not through the consultant. In my office, in my office, it's a complete no entry to those people. Earlier on, for when the check post and all that, when the goods were, what we call it as for stopped on the way and all that. We used to avail their services for getting it cleared, which involves, some kind of greasing and all that. But for that, I think that's something which one has to be careful going forward. We should disconnect with these people and have a direct client with the client. I also go to the client's premises once in a while, invite the client for a cup of tea. That's all very important. We do that, particularly newer clients. They should know what we are. We should go and see whether the business is actually there, the stock is there, the factory is there, the machines are working, the units are functional. There are no going concern issues in the wake of all this COVID issues. So this is one thing which one has to be very clear. For level 3, level 2 and level 3 entities, actuarial valuation is mandatory. Level 3 entities with less than 50 employees and level 4. Level 4 is the 2 and the 10. Turnover is less than 10 crores and borrowings is less than 2 crores. That is the case, then this relaxation is applicable and there is no need for actuarial valuation. Others, actuarial valuation is mandatory. Now we come to that part of it. Leases, accounting standard leases, yes, there are certain exemptions which are there relating again to disclosures. I'll come to that. Earnings per share is for companies, not applicable. Consolidation is not applicable. Accounting for taxes on income, so our deferred tax. This is applicable across the board, but for level 4 enterprises, that's a small relaxation. Accounting for investments in associate in CFS, no. Discontinuing operations, AS 24 is applicable for the level 2 enterprises. Level 3 and level 4, they are exempt. Now, these are the exemptions which are available for from AS 19 leases, because there are certain disclosures which are mentioned in these paragraphs on operating lease, finance lease, sale and buyback transactions, etc. And also regarding the accounting policy on initial indirect costs, also not applicable to level 2 entity, level 2 entity, and level 4 entities, 3 and 4 entities, the last paragraph of it. AS 22 taxes on income, level 4 entities, they are not required to compute or disclose deferred tax liability, only current tax liability, as we do for the tax computation. Based on the tax computation, we make a provision for that. They are exempted. So level 4 entities are exempted from the computation and disclosure of deferred taxation. AS 25 is not applicable because interim financial reporting. Intangible assets, AS 26, yes, applicable, subject to a not. Financial reporting, joint ventures, no. Impairment of assets, yes. And provisions, contingent liabilities and contingent assets, yes. So this is the applicability. This is a chart I will share with you. This is the applicability of accounting standards, level-wise applicability of the 29-2 standards. About the one more note we have to discuss on the intangible assets. Intangible assets, here it's slightly technical. The impairment losses recognized and reversed and encouraged disclosures on fully amortized intangible assets are not applicable for level 4 entity. So for level 2 and level 3, intangible assets AS 26 is applicable, and AS 28 is slightly technical. Value in use, there can make reasonable estimates without discounting. That is in arriving at the intrinsic value or the value in use of an asset. We do the cash flow basis, and for that cash flow need not be discounted. A reasonable estimate can be done by level 2 and level 3 entities. Level 4 is not applicable. Again, AS 29. AS 29 in the case of companies and level 1 entities, non-corporate entities, we have to give a tabulation in the notes on accounts. Complete list of provisions, provision for gratuity, provision for taxation, opening balance, additional provision made during their payouts, and final closing balance. Those paragraphs are not applicable for level 2, level 3, and level 4 entities. This is the level-wise applicability of accounting standard. Now, in the next less than half an hour or so, we would run through some of the important provisions of the standards one by one. And before that, we'll also have a look at how to report. The institute has said that when there is non-compliance with an accounting standard. Now, in the first part of the presentation, which we have just kind of done, we have seen that accounting standards are applicable for non-corporate entities also. Members of the institute, while discharging their attestation function, should make sure that the financial statements comply with accounting standards. And to what extent are they applicable to non-corporate entities? Level 1, all standards in entirety, 29-2. Level 2, 3, 4, in the 4-5 slides which we have seen just now, the level-wise applicability we have seen. This is understanding. This we have to be very clear. I'm sharing this with you, and this you can use it as a reference material. Yes, sir. And Kumar, sir.
Yes, sir. With regard to the very first applicability, any definition for borrowing, sir? Whether this is specific borrowings or any all borrowings put together? Like borrowing, no?
Borrowings would include borrowings from financial institutions and banks, external borrowings. The loans given by the direct partners, in-house loans will not be considered.
Because most of the partnership firms, they will have unsecured loans here from the family members of the partners.
Family from outside the family members, yes, that would apply. Other than the partners, the term borrowings, I will see whether there's a classification. But the normal interpretation is that only external borrowings would include from family members also. Partners' borrowings will not be considered.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I will just see. Yeah.
Because in most of the offshore firms, they will have family borrowings from the family members, other than partners.
I understand. I think that should be considered.
Yeah.
That looks like the spirit of it. There, the major catch is 269 SS and 269T, which is from a tax point of view. But I have moved away from tax practice many years back.
Okay.
Because specialization for the sake of specialization, that we'll discuss at the end of it.
Okay.
Good question, sir. I'll once again go through and let you know whether there's a specific thing on borrowings or it is extended from, that is extension which I've given from the company's accounting standards rules, because borrowings is a general definition, will exempt in-house borrowings, but any external borrowing will be part of the borrowings for the purpose of this 250 crores and 50 crores. Yeah. So now how to report is that without making it a subject matter of audit qualification. That's a term softly we have to mention. You are not saying that the financial statements does not give a true and fair view, etc., etc. That is not there in the case of a non-corporate entity. So somewhere in the auditor's report, in the form 3CB, we have provision where we have to say that except for or subject to. Now, how do we qualify a company audit report? Earlier, the terminology was subject to. Now, the term is, if you look at SA 705, the wording has been changed from subject to except for the matter specified in basis for qualified opinion paragraph. That is how we give a qualified report. So here it is not an audit qualification. In the form 3CB, I'm right, yeah, 3CB, we have to mention that the standards have not been complied with. This is what the institute has asked us to do. Is there a regulator outside the institute as far as non-corporate entities are concerned? The answer is no. But let me take again a detour. In the case of companies, there is the MCA, which can take action against the institute. NAFRA, I don't know whether you are all, if you are in the corporate audit space, the National Financial Reporting Authority has gained strong ground. And I'm sure that some of you know that they have taken very stringent action against the auditors in IL and FS because of that 92,000 crore irregularity in the whole audit, where the multinational firms, 2 serving partners and 1 ex-partner was punished, barred from the practice COP for 7 years. And of course, slash penalties up to 25 lakhs on that. So, but in this space, non-corporate space, there is no regulator other than the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. But when it comes to tax computation from business and other sources, we are also required to comply with ICDS, which is a different topic which we are not discussing today. Income and computation and disclosure standards. But let us understand that the compliance with the income ICDS will not result in any accounting entry per se. Accounting entry will not happen, except that by compliance, probably the provision for taxation, provision for current taxation may stand reduced based on the disallowances which happen in the income computation statement. I hope that is clear. So this is how we report non-compliant with accounting standards in the case of a non-corporate entity. With that, we'll quickly move on to some of the specifics The AS1 disclosure of accounting policies, the standard says all significant accounting policies should be disclosed in the notes on accounts, in the introductory part of it. Under notes on accounts, the first one is significant accounting policies. Significant stands for materiality here, and it should be in one single place. Any change in an accounting policy should also be disclosed in the notes on accounts. Accounting assumptions need not be mentioned. What are the accounting assumptions? Accrual, going concern, and consistency. Accrual, going concern, and consistency need not be mentioned. What the problem which we are seeing in the FRRB as well as other places is that very poor disclosures, very generic disclosures in the notes on accounts. And sketchy one-pager, SMC is for companies, I'm sorry. And here the level 1, level 2 enterprise should also mention in the notes on accounts that they are a level 2 enterprise and accordingly complied with the standards applicable to them. This SMC I had copied from the company audit, this thing. It is not SMC, the level aspect is missing in the notes on account. So this year, when we say that we are exempt as a level 3 entity, we are exempt from some standards. In the notes, we should say that the firm is a level 2, level 3 entity as prescribed by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India and hence complied with those standards only. And these are the common mistakes which are seeing: employee benefits, borrowing costs, earnings per share, of course, not applicable, deferred taxation, impairment, provision for contingent liabilities, provisions that is not mentioned in the notes. Inventories, yes, it should be valued at cost or net realizable value, whichever is less. Financial charges are not normally included. Recognize absorption costing only. What can happen is in the inventory computation of inventory value, valuation of inventories rather, manufacturing entities which have different processes may have indirect production overheads. That should also be included in arriving at cost. FIFO and weighted average cost fully allowed for the general purposes. Allows exclusive method of GST only. If your input is VATable, if the component of GST on your input is debited to a current asset, like CGST input credit and SGST input credit, then that is not be included in the inventory valuation while taking raw material cost. Changes in classification, finished goods and stock in trade. Finished goods will be manufactured goods, but if you're trading also, trading goods will be goods acquired for trading. Cash flow is not applicable, so we have to skip. Adjusting events occurring after the balance sheet, and I think that also we can run through. Net profit or loss for the period. So the idea is to say that if yours a normal year, 5 items can make impact on your current year results. To understand what is your current year performance, the spirit of the standard is that extraordinary items, prior period items, changes the effect of change in accounting estimates. For example, useful life of an asset from 5 years, you're reducing it to 3 years. The impact of that, a change in an accounting policy from weighted average cost method, you are shifting to FIFO or FIFO to weighted average cost method. These 4 items have to be separately disclosed. That is the spirit of the standard. AS 6 and 8, as we know, have been withdrawn fully. AS 7 construction contracts. I'm sure most of you will have clients who are contractors, non-corporate clients who are contractors. Please be clear that they can follow percentage of completion method only. ICDS also now recognizes percentage of completion method, which means that year after year, if there is a long-term contract you are entering into, which goes beyond 1 year, 2 years like that, based on the percentage of completion, you have to recognize profits in the 3 years over which the contract is spread over. Revenue recognition, revenue from sales, services, interest, royalty, and dividend. Sales, when ownership is passed on, rewards and risk of ownership is passed on to the buyer, the seller can account for as sales, recognize revenue. Services, based on the service contract terms of contract of the service agreement. Interest as a function of time, applying the rate, fixed deposit of 1 crore, put for 9 months at the rate of 5% or 6%. So 1 crore into 6% into 9 by 12. That is the income which you would recognize in a particular accounting period. Royalty, of course, based on what has been agreed upon between the firm and the party, the counterparty. Dividend is not applicable. Dividend is, firms cannot become non-corporate entities. Of course, proprietary concern, again, there could be non-trade investments, but now property, plant and equipment, the name has been changed from accounting from fixed assets to property, plant and equipments. Here, the major change is about the depreciation aspects also. Since AS6 is withdrawn, is replanted into the paragraph 40 to 60 of the standard. AS 11, very important, all the foreign exchange fluctuations have to be either expensed or taken credit for. It's a revenue item or current account transactions. Premium and discount on inception on foreign exchange contracts. If you have foreign exchange derivatives, hedging and all that, then that entire premium has to be spread over the period of the contract, the forward contract. That is what it says. Otherwise, no capitalization of revenue expenses. Exchange differences arising from translation of non-integral foreign operation, and that's something technical, I think we can skip that. AS 12, grants, accounting for grants, non-corporate entities. I'm sure that the state government of Andhra Pradesh would be giving a lot of grants, incentives to newly set up units. Grant and aid for research, lab equipments and things like that. So capital grants have to be credited to capital reserve. Revenue grants are normally taken into revenue under the income side of the P&L account. Reimbursements are netted off against the full expenditure. Like foreign travel, market finding expenses, reimbursed like say 50%. So incur 5 lakhs of foreign tour expenses, 2.5 lakhs the government is reimbursing. That should be netted off against the 5 lakhs, and only net amount of 2.5 lakhs should be debited to the P&L account. AS 13, I don't know whether this is very common. This is in respect of investment property. If a partnership firm, big partnership firm is investing in real estate, holding it for long term, not trading regularly, then he becomes a real estate operator, not for setting up a project like acquiring a space in a mall and saying that we would sell it after 3 years for a profit. But malls have gone down now because of COVID. So they are all coming under the broad definition of investment property. AS 13 covers that as well. That should be at cost always, and cost inventory, only cost model. The fluctuations in their value will not be considered, should not be considered until they are disposed of. AS 15, we have seen that defined benefit plans, the provisions are to be made based on actuarial valuation. Actuarial valuation mandatory. Funding, as called the sinking fund, or we give a contribution to the LIC, develop a fund for the accruing liability. Funding is not mandatory, but if funding is done, then the plan assets, the investment that LIC makes, can take a hit in terms of their value. If that happens, then that loss, that reduction in the plan assets, value of plan assets should also be provided for. So P&L will get a bigger hit, bigger debit if there is a value depreciation plan assets. AS 16, borrowing costs. Qualifying assets is something which takes more than 1 year, more than 12 months to complete. So if you're constructing a building and that building is taking, let's say, 18 months for completion, and you take a specific borrowing from a bank, SBI or Canara Bank, to fund that building project, just completing the building, the interest relating to the period from starting the construction till it is ready for commercial use, for that period, the entire interest has to be capitalized and added on to the cost of the building. Subsequent period interest have to be expensed. And there's also a situation where you would set up a big project, building, plant and machinery, electrification, all those things, and have a basket, different basket of borrowings. Like Anthoma sir was asking, so there could be the partners' loans at let's say 10%, bank loans at 12%, borrowing from relatives at again, or NBFCs at 15%. So you have to arrive at a capitalization average based on the amount of borrowings, based on the period it is outstanding, and then apply to the qualifying assets. All other cases, like for example, a pure trader buying and selling, let's say chili or spices, buying and selling, all facilities of an ODCC or all working capital facility interests have to be expensed. It cannot be capitalized because they are not relatable to assets which are built up, which has a gestation period of more than 12 months. 17 segment reporting not required. AS 18 not fully disclosed. AS 18 transactions are not fully disclosed. This could be found fault with transactions only, because the standard requires transactions with related parties as well as the year-end closing balance, year-end balance, that should be disclosed as per AS 18. And another thing which is very important for every one of us is that we clash with CARO and Form 3CD. Clash with CARO is not there, that's for companies. But Form 3CD, what can happen is you would probably, in the notes on accounts, you give all these disclosures, related party transactions, and may leave it out in Form 3CD under the 40A to be closed. So that should not happen. It should be holistic. That's something which I thought should. AS 20 is not required, 21 is not required. 22, deferred taxation, something which requires attention here. Now, deferred taxation, I hope all of you are clear that unabsorbed losses and depreciation. If unabsorbed loss will be can be carried forward if the return is filed within the due date. Unabsorbed depreciation and losses will also result in deferred tax assets, DTA, because they have a tax effect in the future. Future profit, you can set this off and on the reduced amount, you will pay taxes, right? So here, the unabsorbed loss and depreciation, DTA relating to that can be carried forward only if there is virtual certainty about future profits. Virtual certainty about future profits. So virtual certainty is not by preparing an Excel sheet, a rosy business plan if you prepare and say that this is my future plan. It doesn't work. Accounting standard interpretation on AS 22 has made it very clear that it should be based on reliable, conclusive evidence. Reliable, conclusive evidence is based on, you have an export order, confirmed export order, or an order from somebody setting up a huge factory there, and you're saying that, okay, you're in let's say food products, commodities. So they have a huge canteen for the staff, cafeteria for the staff, they call it the food court. They're saying that we are giving a contract 3 years to take so many tons or kgs of chili spices from you every month. There's a firm order based on that, an export order like that. So virtual certainty has to be based on reliable, conclusive evidence. AS 26, in companies as well as in non-corporate entities, we have the practice of, not writing of preliminary expenses. Preliminary expenses are, written off in line with 35D. But all these the deferred revenue expenditure and things like that, they should naturally be taken out, and they cannot be carried over. It should be expensed because they do not meet recognition criteria. No long-term benefits are expected. They are expended, sunk and gone. Therefore, AS 26 has to be complied with by all these things. So last but not the least, very important, I think 1 o'clock, we are about to conclude. Some of the members have left. We still have about 25, 26 of you with us. COVID challenges us. Please take note that going concern is a big concern. See, accounting assumptions I did mention. In AS 1, accounting assumptions, going concern, consistency and accrual. But the given situation that we are in, the threats and posed by COVID, the closure of business for a long time, loss of business. In Kerala, I'm sure in Andhra Pradesh also, tourism industry has taken the worst hit. There have not been many takers, but today there's a bouncing back. There's a bouncing back. Interestingly, there is something called revenge spending, which the tourism industry is talking about. People have been confined, so today they would bounce back. Last weekend, I went I took a break with my family in a beach resort about 60 kilometers north from up on the western coast. It's in another district. I'm sitting in Ernakulam district, 62 kilometers to be precise, a beach resort. And it was almost full. It was almost full occupancy was there. And we tried for a discount to our agent. They said no discount. There's nothing like this. They're selling at rack rates. and they're taking due care, but it's a beach resort, very real nice. So people are really wanting to break free and travel, so it might bounce back. But then there are industries which have almost hit the dead end, so that has to be very carefully seen. And every member of the institute today, through the COVID pronouncements, 6 of them issued between March 2020 and July 2020 on subsequent events, inventory valuation, going concern, all that. We are asked to be more cautious, more judicious, and to be more skeptical. Professional skepticism should stand amplified. That seems to be the spirit of these pronouncements. So that's very important. And every auditor, every financial analyst or auditor should apply more judgment. And for that, we should refer to the pronouncements of the institute and also have sessions like this on various topics which are of relevance. And I'm happy that 3 branches have come together. In fact, the turnout could have been better, but today is a working day. And next time onwards, I request the branches to also include CA final students also for this kind of programs. Of course, many of them have gone on leave, but who are ready for our 3rd year students, I would say, there are, so that we can have a larger participation, not for the sake of me having an audience. At a point of time when we are sharing information, it's good that our senior students also are made part of this. So that's a friendly suggestion I would like to make. So before I conclude, let us talk about something very important, which I consider is very important for the profession. So as every one of us, I think, need to really have a relook at the infrastructure and the technology that we have. One of the COVID lessons is that suddenly when the lockdown came, we all have raised our eyebrows and asked this question: are we able to work from home? WFH is a new normal, but not a new normal. It's become the regular normal. But many of the companies are going back to physical workspace again. And salespeople have to really go on the streets, meet people, and deals will happen only in corridors. That is what a senior executive TCS told me last week. Sale deal will happen only in the corridors. Online, it hardly happens. So for chartered accountants, I would say that we should spend more of, I think, focus on infrastructure, office infrastructure, because most of our waking hours, the time we spend at home, most of the time we sleep. So waking hours we spend in our office. So we should have a healthy environment, a hygienic environment. Hygiene has taken center stage after the COVID. And therefore, I think a lot of things can be thought about improving the infrastructure. Of course, leveraging on technologies, including work from home, is a need of the hour. People and processes. If growth is still on the agenda, a well-meaning firm which feels like growing. I was introduced as a partner having 8 partners, firm having 8 partners. We are still wanting to grow. We are still aspiring to grow. We can see the baseline of our firm is bigger, better, bolder. Bigger is growing in size, growing in deliverables, growing in terms of people, revenues, everything. Deliverables is very important. Knowledge management is a huge challenge. Better is improving the way we render, improving the way we conduct ourselves, improving the way we serve our clients, and also protecting our interests. Bolder is taking some new initiatives. I'm seeing that many of the senior members are really slogging it out. They are stretched. They're not able to find the right partner to be added to the firm and grow, because there is a fear that he would take away part of the practice and things like that. But I've been fortunate that way to add partners at least every 2 years. And now a time is ripe, almost ripe for to think about the 9th partner. And that is a way, otherwise you're stretched, and as a single proprietary firm, you have a lot of limitations on deliverables. Plus again, I hope you would have seen the latest circular notification of Reserve Bank of India issued on 27th April, notification 25 of the RBI. Because there's a threadbare discussion. Prasanna sir and Chinamasan was talking about that, where the smaller firms will not be getting large audits. There's a fear that proprietary firms will not be getting bank audits. That's not correct. 70% of the practicing firms are proprietary, and therefore Reserve Bank has been clearly told that any decision to not to allow bank audits to proprietary concerns will result in a great shortage of audit firms, and there will be a scramble and quality issue. That scare is not there, but as we go forward, I think we need to add good people, young people as the firm's age, and good processes also, compliance with standards, including in attendance. Some of the firms there is even RFID, which is being used, in-out system kind of things. good surveillance, and that we should do. Billing and collection, something which is very, very close to my heart. I think we have discussed this in all forums, where we are poor at billing and we give undue credit, 12 months credit and things like that. That to new clients, we should apply new rules. Old clients, it may be difficult. Audit clients, this year particularly, we may have to extend some credit, but not indefinite credit. One thing I'm seeing is that any kind of an assignment, it could be an audit, it could be a feasibility report, it could be a business valuation, it could be a certification. We talk about the bill amount, the fees only at the end. The terms of engagement has to be clear. So when a client approaches, now immediately after this, I'm going to send a proposal, and then we'll insist on, he asked for an NDA, non-disclosure agreement. I said, NDA, where is the NDA? Before getting a proper appointment, how should we sign an NDA? So complete scope of the work. We have been asked to do a due diligence and evaluation of a hospital in Chennai for a business group based in Pune. I'm sitting in Cochin. So I have to physically go and do it. So we started this discussion and I quoted a fee, which said this is a fee which is going to be charged, and this has to be paid immediately after. And travel costs, I'll not book the flight ticket at my cost and then wait for reimbursement. If I have to travel to Chennai, my hotel has to be booked and my ticket has to be booked. Only based on that I'll go. I'll stay in a good hotel, do the work, and then ask for a part payment halfway through. And immediately before the report is issued, due diligence as well as evaluation report, the full fees has to be paid. Failing which, we stand a chance. So this is how, to a new client, we can really, I would say, dictate terms. I'm not getting very, I would say, arrogant or candid here, but that's the way we should deal with clients. Financial planning, a lot of senior colleagues, but I think many of us are still very poor at personal financial planning. Probably you are much better than me, but then always to inform the spouses about what we have, what are the liabilities, all those things, term insurance, medical insurance, all those things we should do. And a lot of attitude changes have happened during COVID. Many of us have started looking into ourselves much more than we used to do. So if there is a change need be, let us change. Let us present ourselves really well. We are a part of a knowledge profession. We are all leaders. Many of the people here are leaders, and therefore we should attire ourselves properly, not wearing a suit all the time, but that's very important. And to the younger generation, I would say cut down on social media. Screen time really is, unless it's required for a professional thing on all those things, I think there's a need to cut down on social media. Lastly, I'm seeing a lot of senior members here. Our offices, I always say, different form of a Gurukul system. Therefore, in spite of the fact that there could be 10% dissidents, indifferent students, for the rest of the 90% who are the future of the profession, I think our offices should become much more student friendly, give them a decent stipend, a 5-day week, working day week. Habitual late sitting should be avoided. Develop an academic culture, because they are the future of the profession. What they learn from us, they would pass on to the next generation of students. And do all that is possible to make our offices a happy organization, so that we go back home relaxed and not tensed or worked up after the working days that we spend in our offices. So with that, let me conclude thanking every one of you for the opportunity, and all the 3 branches managing committee members for the opportunity. Also for Prasanna and Chinna and Changal for joining us. So there are questions. I would take a few questions. I think I've kept up the time. And so with that, with a big thank you. Let's move forward about COVID. It is, the lockdowns are getting lifted, but COVID is not gone fully. So let us take due care. While we stay careful, we should also stay hopeful and say that this too shall pass. Wish you all the very best. God bless every one of you.
Sir, with regard to this turnover and borrowings, is as at end of 31/3/20, we have to take it to now, sir. As at end of 31/3/20.
Yeah, end of 31/3/20. Yes.
No,
2021.
Then apply whether level 1, level 2, or level 3.
Yeah, 21.
Sir,
I will read that verbatim for you. It is as at the year end, talking about the year end. I'll just refer to that. At the end of the relevant accounting period, that is 21 March.
Relevant accounting year, sir.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Earlier, these accounting standards were used to be titled as accounting standards applicable to non-company entities.
Yeah.
Why the title has been changed to accounting standards applicable to non-corporate entities? What is the reason behind that, sir?
It's non-company entities only. The terminology I have used. The institute wording is non-company entities only.
Yes.
I think I've used the term non-corporate. It doesn't make a huge difference. Company and corporates are interchangeably used. So,
okay, corporate, the word corporate meaning is much wider than company, sir. Because of
absolutely.
that only.
Yeah.
Non-company,
non-company entities is a term which is used by the institute. You are right.
Yes, that is a term that is being used by the institute.
Yes, you are right. I will change the slide next time when I present. Thank you.
Right, sir. Right. Thank you very much. Gangaram, sir.
Sir.
Shall we conclude?
Is there any questions from the members?
Nothing in the chat box. I'm not able to access the Q&A if it is there.
Thank you very much, sir.
Because why? Because I think this resource person, sir, is also going to be resource person for today's seminar that is going to be organized by Guntur Events at 5:30 p.m. today, sir.
Yeah, Guntur. I'm addressing Guntur. I think Rajamahendravaram is in the morning with Kakinada and evening with Guntur.
Yes, because Changal Reddy Garu is the article ex officio to Guntur as well as Rajamahendravaram branches.
Yes. Guntur, there evening there's one more branch which is joining in Mahendravaram and I think Kurnool.
Kurnool, yes.
I think it's Kurnool.
Kurnool.
Yeah. That is on company audit, sir. That is on company.
Sir. Right. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
When this topic was suggested, I grabbed this topic because I was having this old presentation. Then I worked on this new one based on the May 21 journal. So if there have been some missing ends, I hope I could answer all the questions. Like that's a non-company. Better to be specific. Use the institute term itself, non-company, because corporate has a wider term. LIC as of now is also a corporate, but not a limited company. So government corporations, and I appreciate the point. So some corrections, like for example, yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for considering.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for your enlightened program actually. And you said, sir, AS1 disclosure of the accounting policies, poor disclosure. I have seen so many. Actually, I worked in a government organization for 30 years. So we have noticed every time, because we are having the clash with the statutory auditors. One or another we should have to change, but that has to be in. Actually, they are silent about those things. Actually, we are using the traditional way of practice. We should have to go for the dynamic way. Actually,
yeah, absolutely.
We can analyze, change according to the situation, but we are not at all doing in that fashion. Same copy, cut and paste. What we are actually following. That is the only thing, sir. Anyhow, thank you very much, sir, for your kind and enlightened presentation given to us for strengthening our accounting standards. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
And I have a small complaint. No tea, no vada, no memento.
Definitely, sir. In your after being a member, central member, definitely will call you once, sir. Definitely will provide you all.
My pleasure. Whether I become a council member or not, I'll come down because I really enjoyed my. I did an AP tour. Started from Hyderabad, then got into Andhra Pradesh, did an AP tour, and finally took a train back to Chennai. Late evening. Enjoy the hospitality. As Chinnama said, the spicy food.
I am wishing you, sir, to be a central member. That is also another word.
With all your good wishes and support, yeah.
Don't worry, sir. We are all with you. Don't worry. And next to come to our Prasanna Kumar, sir. His paid is excellent, actually busy schedule. So yesterday he was at Chennai.